I'm Melinda Nusafora, bringing you a special interview on Arabiya News with senior Hamas official Basem Naim. After 14 long and painful months, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has been secured. On Sunday, the world will witness a pause in the fighting and the start of a prisoner exchange. But this deal is not the end of the crisis. It's merely the beginnings of a solution, and there's a long road ahead. So let's bring in our very special guest. I'm joined by senior Hamas official Basem Naim. Thank you for joining us here on Arabiya News. After 14 months, we finally have a deal. But this is very similar to the deal that the Biden administration proposed back in May. So why now and not then, when so many lives could have been spared?
Unfortunately, I have to admit that we have received the Israeli proposal for a ceasefire agreement on May 27th through the mediators. This proposal was announced and stated by President Biden in his famous speech, and then it became part of the UN Security Council resolution. And we have, in all this, the stations, we have welcomed this and expressed our readiness to go ahead. But unfortunately, since that time, for more than 7 months of horror and killing and genocide, Netanyahu was not planning, was not intending to go for a ceasefire, and he was still hoping that he might be able to achieve his announced goal at the beginning of the aggression after October 7th, to crush Hamas, to displace the Palestinian people outside the Gaza Strip, and to retrieve his captured Israelis by force. When he failed to achieve all of these goals, and he has nothing to do, according to the IDF sources, nothing more to do in Gaza Strip, increasing pressure inside Israel, and the change in the American administration, to be honest, that President-elect Biden, Trump said, I want to see an end of this conflict or escalation before the inauguration day. Maybe all this together has led to signing the agreement or accepting the agreement 2 days ago, but we are still waiting for the official acceptance of the Israeli government, Israeli cabinet for this deal.
You mentioned the incoming Trump administration. Many observers are giving credit to Donald Trump and his incoming special Middle East envoy, Stephen Wickoff, for putting additional pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to ensure that this deal was signed. Do you think it could have been successful without Donald Trump taking the White House in just a few days' time?
On one side, no, I couldn't imagine that this could be possible without the pressure from the coming administration led by President Trump, because his envoy in the region, Mr. Witkoff, was here for the last few days, taking notice of all the details and where are the obstacles, and exercising pressure, especially on the Israeli government. Therefore, yes, they have a great input to reach this moment. And I'm sure most of the delay for the last months was because of the reluctant, maybe complicit Biden administration and their unlimited, unwavering support for the government in Israel, for the war against Palestinians, and for the continuous investment in this war militarily, diplomatically, and politically. But on the other side, I don't know exactly what he has, I mean, the coming administration led by Trump, what they have promised Netanyahu to go for this deal. Maybe they might down-escalate or de-escalate the situation in the Gaza Strip, but at the same time, they might give him promises to announce the sovereignty of in the West Bank, the Judaization of Jerusalem, annexing of more land of more Palestinian land, maybe to go further in the track of normalization in the Arabic region, because this was one of the precondition to restart or to relaunch the operation, the normalization operation, is to stop this war, to stop this aggression. No one can go for normalization with Israel while they were committing genocide in Gaza. all this together.
I wonder if you think then that a weak Biden administration is partly to blame for the ongoing conflict and bloodshed we have seen over these past months.
100%. Biden administration, Biden himself, and Tony Blinken, they are complicit in the genocide against our people, because on one side they're talking about an attempt or trial to reach a ceasefire. On the other side, we have seen using veto 4 times in the Security Council against the international will when 147 countries voted for a ceasefire here, when we have seen billions, 60 to 70 billion of dollars paid for Israel along this time, when we have seen thousands of tons or hundreds of thousands of tons of of American ammunitions and weapons reach Israel. Israel would not be able to continue committing this genocide in the Gaza Strip without the unwavering American support. More than 500,000 tons of explosive material and weapons reach Israel from America. More than 80 to 90,000 tons of explosive materials dropped on the Gazans along the last 15 months.
There are 2 sides to every conflict, so let me ask you this. In recent days, in recent months, there have been accusations that your organisation, that Hamas, has been putting up last-minute barriers and complications to a deal. Does Hamas take responsibility for not securing this ceasefire for its Palestinian people sooner?
Yeah, I think I have said it at the beginning. In May 27, we have accepted the Israeli proposal, which was handed over to the Americans and then became part of the UN Security Council. And then we have said, yes, we are ready to go for the details how to implement this deal. What was the response from the Israeli side? Committing more massacres in Mawasi, in Gaza, assassinating our leadership. They have assassinated the top leadership in Hamas who was negotiating with the Israelis. How can you negotiate a ceasefire agreement or a peace agreement where you are killing the man who is sitting around the table negotiating with you? I think it is clear. By the way, yesterday we have heard from Israeli sources and some some Western media sources who are adopting the Israeli narrative that in the last few days Hamas has added new conditions. We have said it publicly and strongly. We have accepted the deal. We are ready to go for implementing the deal, and we have no other conditions. And this is the reality. But what was the problem? That Netanyahu was struggling in his cabinet to get a clearance for this deal, but he failed until now. Therefore, he wants to transfer this internal problems, internal obstacles to the outside, as if Hamas is blocking the deal. But we are ready now for 7 months to go for a deal.
This deal will happen in phases, as we know, and the Israeli Prime Minister has threatened to resume fighting after phase 1. Is Hamas taking that threat seriously? And how concerned are you that the fighting is simply going to resume once the hostages have been exchanged?
First of all, we hope not that he go again for a war against Palestinians, and we hope that the mediators, in particular the Americans in this case, to guarantee that this is a deal for a permanent ceasefire and a total withdrawal of the Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. But we are expecting obstacles, violations, sabotage from the Israeli side to spoil the deal, because we are aware that a lot of Israeli cabinet members and governmental ministers and Knesset members against the deal, and now they are already threatening to spoil or to sabotage the deal. And we are also experienced in the former ceasefire deal, temporary ceasefire deal in November 2023, that the Israelis were not committed to their words, and they haven't been committed to all the terms of the agreement at that time. At the same, we are expecting this, but we will try the maximum, all what we can, to avoid the collapse of this deal, because our main goal is how to protect our people, how to prevent a war again, how to stop this aggression. But I have to say one important thing. It is not only about the violations and which was expected during the next 4 months, the three phases deal. But again, the October 7th operation was a response to a root cause of all this escalation in the region, which is the occupation. Gaza, after the ceasefire, is still besieged. Gaza, after the ceasefire deal, is still occupied. The West Bank is still occupied. Jerusalem is still occupied. Annexation plans and so on. Therefore, the root of all these causes is the occupation. And the international community have said it clearly in the ICC, in the ICG, and in the UN General Assembly that Israel presence in the occupied territory, Palestinian occupied territory, is an occupation, and they have the right to get rid of this occupation. Therefore, as long as the occupation is there, no one can expect a sustainable, long-standing stability, security, or prosperity, or even peace.
Since you raise October 7, let me ask you, since the start of this conflict, much of Gaza has been destroyed. It's reduced to rubble. More than 46 Palestinians have been killed, and many of Hezbollah's allies, including Hezbollah, have been very severely weakened. Does Hamas still consider this operation a victory? Was it worth it to end the occupation when you consider everything that has come after?
Look, first of all, I'm sure Hamas is a big movement, institutionalized movement, is going to sit down and to reevaluate all what happened since October 7th and to investigate seriously about the positive and negative outcomes of this round of escalation. But I have to say again, October 7th was a response, was an act of defense. It was a reaction to an already existing action, which is the occupation.
It sounds like in your response there you don't really believe that October 7 was a good idea.
Sorry. Between 2000 and 2023, Gaza alone have passed through 4 or 5 stations of aggressions and wars by the Israelis. In all cases, there was no October 7th. Thousands killed, thousands of houses destroyed, infrastructure destroyed. In the West Bank, where there is no Hamas and there is no October 7th and there is no rockets, 20,000 Palestinians in the last 20 years killed on checkpoints by the army or by the settlers. The annexation of the West Bank, the land of in the West Bank, has nothing to do with October 7th. It is the occupation. It is the Israeli, the Zionist ideology of this fascist extremist regime, how they are seeing the conflict. How can I respond to an official statement by Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, who in public, in front of the UN, talking about between the river and the sea, there is no chance for any other state except Israel. There is no right for a Palestinian state. Palestinians have no right of statehood, no right of self-determination, no right of land, no right of water. And Palestinians have only a place in Jordan or somewhere else. They are even talking about bigger plans to take part of Jordan, part of Lebanon, part of Egypt. Therefore, it is not, again, about Palestinians. Palestinians are the victims of an ongoing occupation for 75 years. And all what we are doing is a response and a reaction to the original cause. We are trying to get rid of this prison, and we cannot continue keeping or keep being silent or being good victims or trying to improve the conditions inside the prison. We want to get rid out of this prison.
Do you think, though, that Hamas has improved the situation of the Palestinian people in Gaza in the last 14 months?
This question is a relative question. What does it mean improving the life conditions.
Well, do you think you have achieved the
sorry,
outcomes?
Sorry,
do you think
sorry,
you have achieved
sorry,
the outcomes?
we have to choose. We have to choose between two forms of death: either to die in silence by lacking of medicine, by lacking of food, by shooting from the borders everywhere, by denying us the right of education, the right of freedom of traveling, or so on, or to die by an Israeli or an American bomb during a military escalation. These are the two choices we have got as an offer. We have chosen to die standing, fighting for our dignity and freedom. Therefore, it is not about paradise and hell. It is about the levels you are choosing in hell. Therefore, again, the origin of all these causes is how to get rid of the occupation. We have the right to live in dignity, in freedom, in peace, to secure our children a better future. Look, if this question is valid, you have raised now, it means that it is valid when you say that the Europeans were foolish or idiots, sorry, when they have lost 30, 40 million Europeans, innocent civilians. A lot of cities like London, Dresden, Paris, and others were destroyed to fight the fascist regimes or the Nazi army. But again, it is the fight for freedom and dignity, and it is not a loss when you fight for noble goals.
Okay, let's look forward. If this ceasefire does hold, what do you envisage Hamas's role to be in a post-war Gaza? And if the international community insists that Hamas plays no political role in order to conduct reconstruction, will Hamas leave? Or relinquish power, I should say?
Look, two things. First of all, Hamas is not an armed group. Hamas is not a military movement. Hamas is a big political movement with a military wing, and we are in an inherent part of the Palestinian social fabric. We have military occupation activities, but we have also educational activities, social activities, and all other activities. And we are representing the vast majority of Palestinian people, and this has been proven through elections and through different tools, polls, and so on. Therefore, that's anyone who is dreaming of or that Hamas will disappear suddenly, this is illusions. And I think if you have heard Antony Blinken last press conference, he said Hamas an idea and this cannot be solved by a military operation. But if you talk about ruling Gaza from not only after October 7th, but we have said it years before that we are not willing to rule Gaza, and we are ready to hand it over to any party accepted first from the Palestinians and acceptable from the international community. Therefore, we have invested hundreds and thousands of hours in reconciliation process, Palestinian reconciliations, to form a unity government representing all Palestinians, to reform the PLO to be representative of all Palestinians. And lastly, we have, in the last few months, we have discussed internally with the Palestinians, how can we form a technocratic governments of Palestinians who are not affiliated to any party, not only Hamas, and take over the government in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, to rebuild Gaza, to prepare for election, and so on and so on. If not, we have also accepted the Egyptian proposal to go for an independent body to rule Gaza, formed of technocratic people who are Palestinians, Gazans, not affiliated to any factions, acceptable from the international community and from the region. And we are ready from months already. From months we are already ready to hand over all the authorities. But unfortunately,
the international community, though, often finds it difficult to separate the Hamas political wing from the Hamas military wing, especially after what they have seen in the last 14 months. So Gaza, the Palestinians, certainly need international support to rebuild the devastated region. If they require Hamas to have no part in the rebuilding of Gaza, will Hamas accept that?
I have said it clearly. We are ready already months to hand it over to anyone who is acceptable at the Palestinian level and at the international level. We are a resistance movement. We are not a ruling party. When we have our state, we will convert our movement into a political party. But here I have to say, because these terms you are using, I'm sorry to say, are misleading and cheating, because if you say international community, what does it mean, international community? Look, the UN is not considering Hamas as a terror group. Therefore, the international community is not America. The international community is not the West. But if you mean the West, America and some European country, the former and the current colonial powers, this is another question. Because Russia is not considering, Russia is dealing with Hamas, China is dealing with Hamas, Latin America, Africa, all the Arabic and Islamic countries. It is not about the international community. It is about the American Zionist ideology supporting, unwavering support of Israel and some European country, like Germany, who have committed genocide twice and still continue to support the genocide in Palestine. We have said, who is today undermining the existence of the international community? Hamas or Israel, who is undermining the existence of UNRWA and who is working with all tools, with all dirty tools to dismantle UNRWA and to kick it out, which is representing the will of the international community, which is working based on an international mandate. 147 countries voted for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Where is this will? It has been undermined by the American veto. Therefore, please don't use these vague terms, international community. It is only America and some European countries.
Okay, noted. Let's talk about what is needed in Gaza. We are hearing numbers, 46,000 people dead, so much of the region destroyed. But there are also reports, I note a report published in the Lancet Medical Journal suggesting that that death toll could be far, far greater. From your understanding, give us a sense, if you can, of the situation on the ground, the death toll that you believe, and what needs to be done first as soon as this conflict is on pause.
Thank you very much. This is a very important question. I, as a former Minister of Health and Minister of Youth and Sport and Minister of Social Affairs for some time, I can respond in some figures, which is not 100% accurate now because it has to be updated, but we are talking about at least 50,000 Palestinians killed. 70% of them are women and children, and the rest, most of them are elderly, but we have still 10 to 15,000 of Palestinians under the rubble, more than 120,000 Palestinians wounded, at least 20,000 of them are severely wounded and in urgent need for treatment abroad, or at least for medical delegations and medical equipment inside Gaza urgently. We are talking about all schools destroyed, all hospitals destroyed or dismantled. We are talking about mosques, churches, infrastructure, electricity, solar energy, generators, water wells, everything is destroyed. Our more than 750,000 students have lost at least 2 study years. Therefore, we are in need to rebuild Gaza from scratch. And this will need, first, this will take time. This will need open borders, open gates, which mean lifting the siege on Gaza. And this is the genuine role of the international community to do, how to guarantee opening borders, lifting the siege, not to leave the Israelis to control what's going on, what's going out. And lastly, we are waiting for recruiting at least $100 billion of money from countries, from international organizations, from NGOs, from activists, how to to recruit this money to rebuild Gaza again in all the fields. And here I have to mention that when this agreement or when this deal was signed, there is another agreement and a next signed at the same time, which we call it the humanitarian document or the humanitarian deal or something like that. This is worked out by the Qataris, the Egyptians, the Americans, and the UN. How to bring all the international will and the international capabilities to help the Palestinians to rebuild their life again. But again, this depends on how much Israel will be committed to implementing the deal, how much the borders will be open to allow the needed materials and stuff to come into Gaza, how much Israel will allow delegations, medical delegations, journalists, and others to come into Gaza. I am sure we are talking about billions of dollars. We are talking about years of hard work, and we are talking about a lot of goodwill from all parties to be able to achieve this goal.
The world will be eagerly watching on Sunday as the hostage and prisoner
Inshallah.
exchange gets underway. Are you aware if the hostages have been informed that a ceasefire has been agreed to and the exchange will take place?
I cannot confirm this, but based on our experience from times before, that usually 1 day maximum the prisoners are informed about, but they are not informing them officially, but they are starting to take them from place to place and to transfer them from one prison to another prison, to transfer them with buses to new areas. And usually this is a practical sign that they are on the list to be released as soon as possible.
Senior Hamas official Bassem Naim, we appreciate your time here on Al Arabiya News. Thank you for joining us.
Please, you're welcome.